The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Welcome to another edition of The Gloves Are Off. Matt Schumont filling in for Moses Woldu, and today's episode is going to be fantastic. We're less than 24 hours away from the NHL season, but before we get to that, we got to get to the host and the guest, of course, Buchanan. How's it going?
Hey, Matt.
How you doing?
Not bad.
You ready for this?
I'm all a tingle.
You're on a tingle?
I'm a tingle.
You're all antsy?
Yeah, I'm antsy, yeah.
And today our guest, a familiar face, Andrew.
Not since
Boy,
July.
Whatever.
It's like
Whatever.
3
You're
months
back
without
again.
me.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
We don't send a lot of invites out, so.
No, exactly. You're like, I had a list,
Yeah.
and you're like kind of down here.
Yeah.
But you made it. Thank you very much for showing up. Let's get right into it. We're going to talk about the Canadian teams in the NHL. We'll start, of course, with the Edmonton Oilers. Coming out their roster, keeping a couple surprises. Leon Draisaitl, I didn't think he was going to stick around. And Darnell Nurse, the top pick from last year's team. So what do you guys think of their roster? You like keeping these rookies up for the year?
Well, you said you were surprised. I wasn't surprised Draisaitl made it. Everything you were hearing from Edmonton, it was his position to lose. So he had to really look bad at training camp for him to lose position. So they were hoping that he was going to grab it and did. I don't think Nurse is going to be there for the whole season. I think it's a bit of a, here's a little throw out bone to the young kid and see how he does in the first start of the season. But I really think the Oilers have improved themselves a tiny bit in the back end and a lot better in goal than they were at the start of last season, but they still got a long way to go. As long as, for the Oilers' sake, you know they're not going to make the playoffs. Who's kidding who? Unless you're a real diehard. You know what? And you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Like everyone is here.
If you're drinking the Oilers Kool-Aid and you believe they'll make the playoffs, you get a life. But more than anything, as long as they have games that mean something in February and March, that will probably have the fan base pretty happy.
And do we keep guys like Draisaitl and Nurse around then just for the possibility and for those kind of key games? I don't think you do. I think you keep them for their 9, you give them that 9-game look, and then you got to set them back down. I don't think you make the same mistake that you've made in the past and keep players up like a Yakupov. You probably couldn't have sent Yak back down the OHL where he scored 110 points. Yeah. But I think you have to do something with these young guys. You can't just keep throwing them to the wolves, getting beat, especially in the Western Conference. So I like their roster. I can't say I like their roster.
No, of course, I got to ask him. You're asking this throughout the question. How do you think they'll finish this year?
Oh.
Not in the playoffs, that's for sure.
Yeah, they won't be in the playoffs. They'll be in the bottom
top 5 pick?
Bottom 5 in the entire league.
So another top 5 pick?
Another top 5 pick. The thing is, with the Oilers, like so many other teams, it's the top teams in the West and everybody else. And those bottom teams, the bottom feeders like the Oilers and Flames, it's boys playing against men. When they go up against the Sharks, they go up against the Kings, they go up against those physical teams. It's lights out. And I just really can't see. I don't know when the Oilers will make the playoffs, seriously. I hate to say it to Oilers fans, but be realistic. Like, how long until you think they'll make the playoffs? And I think the important thing for the Oilers right now, don't panic. Aikens, as much as he rubs people the wrong way, he's probably the best fit for that organization.
I hate people who say, if they were in the Eastern Conference, they'd be in the playoffs. Well, you're not in the Eastern Conference. You're in the West, and unfortunately, you're in the West. So, yeah, I think the Toronto drought was bad, but this is going to get a lot worse, I think, for the Oilers. We're looking, I think, at least 4 years until we legit team. Yes, 4 years.
All right, there you go. Now we'll move on to Alberta's other team, the Calgary Flames. Of course, they're also in the midst of a rebuild. Doing all right in the offseason. I really like the signing of Jonas Hiller. He'll be great between the pipes this year. But, guys, what do you think of the Flames heading into the new year?
I think the Flames a little better. I think they're rebuilding properly. They have some nice young guys that are coming up in their system. They're not rushing these guys like Edmonton kind of is. So I think this is the team where you're seeing the progression. Are they going to get finished playoffs? No, of course they're not. Are they going to do better than top 5? Maybe. Depends how the start they get. But they're doing it properly. They're rebuilding it. They're bringing in the youth. I think the Flames they're in a better position than Edmonton is, which is a very big thing to say, but I think they are.
They're better, but are they, point-wise, they'll maybe finish 7-8 points ahead of the Oilers. So in the grand scheme of things, they're a little bit better than the Oilers. I like to make up for the simple fact they're a hard-working team. They know they don't have the talent of the Sharks and the Kings and all the other powerhouses in the West, but they come out every night and bring their lunch bucket. And, they have a couple of real exciting guys. Johnny Hockey.
Yeah.
He's going to be
Johnny Hockey. I hate that.
He's going to be a fun player to watch. Again, he's a small guy in a very tougher Western Conference where time and space becomes very limited against those tall and big teams. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares in the Western Conference.
Of course, I'm going to ask, how do you think they're going to finish overall this year?
Probably a little bit in front of the Oilers, so I think 7th, 8th. I think they're going to be in that bottom 10 again, which is, I think, what they need. They need to still keep producing those picks. Like if you look down the center, they have some great centermen with Monahan, Colburn, Bennett. So I don't, they can start fleshing out the rest. So I think not bad. It's a good thing for them to be in that bottom 10.
Yeah, bottom 10 easy.
Okay, now we'll move on to the Winnipeg Jets. Have yet to make the playoffs since moving back to Winnipeg. So is this year they kind of get over that hump and finally make the second season?
No.
Jinx.
Yeah, they have no goaltending. They haven't had goaltending in Winnipeg since Habby Moulin, probably. And seriously, they traded for a goaltender and then they put him on waivers the next day, which makes no sense at all. I think this is a time for the Winnipeg to finally realize if we want to get anything, we might have to move Evander Kane. And I think once they realize that, and he can get some pretty good commodity for him, I think it's time maybe to move Evander Kane and move forward for Winnipeg's.
And maybe it's time also to get an identity in Winnipeg. I don't think they actually have one. If you look at the rest of the other teams, there's a player you could say that's my identity, and unfortunately, Evander Kane is the identity, which you don't want. So maybe it is time to move him on, bring somebody else in, but you got to start, I think, making something work with what they have. I think they moved Buffalo up to forward again.
Yeah.
What about, you're talking about identity. What about the new coach, Paul Maurice? He'll be there for a full year. Do you think he is the guy that might be able to turn things around?
Oh, there's so many things to fix in Winnipeg, though. I don't know where you start, but you think you start from goal out, like any good team does. So anybody that can turn around, possibly he can. You know what? If Winnipeg does get a bit of a win streak going, it's a hard building to play in. It gets loud. They're in your face. They're sitting right on top of the play. So, it would be fun for the Jets to finally get some wins put together and challenge for a playoff spot, but I think that's wishful thinking.
I'm going to miss Claude Noel newer interviews. There's some great sound bites, but they also, again, they play in the West. This is a hard conference to play in. They don't have the size needed to play in that division. Maybe that's why they moved up Buffy up to that. They don't have that down the middle tough guy they need. Yeah, I don't buy Winnipeg. I don't.
And quickly before we move on, how do you think they're going to finish overall?
Bottom 10.
Bottom 10 again.
Bottom 10. Okay, now we'll finish before we go to break. We'll wrap things up quickly with the Vancouver Canucks, the final Western Conference team. Now, they made some moves in the offseason, getting Willie Desjardins as their coach, Ryan Miller to backstop. After last year when they missed the playoffs, is this the team that could potentially finish in a wildcard spot and make the playoffs?
I think it could. I think the best move is they got rid of Tortorella, which changed the entire dynamic of the team. You can't bring a defensive coach into a team that's built on offense. So unfortunately, we wasted a year on the Sedins playing defense, which is what they don't do. So, that's the problem. That's unfortunate for them that they lost a year for no reason. So now we have hope the Sedins can bounce back. They scored 81 points last year combined. This is not the Sedins we're used to. So a lot of effort going to have to be on the older guys plus Ryan Miller as well. Tortorella
getting out of there is one big thing. I think the players just hated him by the end. So anytime you replace him, you're going to have a player coach like Willie coming on board. Goaltending is a lot better than it was last year. Verbata is going to be a key ingredient to the Sundin line. They've been looking for somebody to play with the Twins there for quite some time. They may have found the right fix there. I think actually Vancouver may legitimately have a shot at a playoff spot. I think they're one of those teams that's going to contend right to the end, and it can go either way at the end.
And what about Ryan Miller? He played in Buffalo for his entire career. Now, of course, when you move into the Canadian market, media is going to be all over them. So do you think Miller is the type of guy who would be able to kind of handle that media pressure?
I think he's used to it by now, especially with everything that went on last year. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Without Tortorella there bringing more media attention, I think they'll be fine in Vancouver. It's a big market, but it's not the market in Canada. So I think Miller, as long as he's playing well, he'll be fine. He won't have to answer those questions, especially now with no backup. It's not the Corey Schneider, Roberto Luongo situation. It's Ryan Miller, and that's the end of the discussion.
And as long as his body doesn't break down, he's getting to that age right now where injuries get a little longer to heal, and playing that position, you can get banged up a little bit too.
All right, yes or no question. Playoffs?
I'm going to say they're going to come close, but they won't make it.
Just missed too.
All right, now we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll head east, talk about the Eastern teams, Canadian teams out there.